psychology behind why you prefer physical books over digital?
Um, for me personally, I don't know if we should rely on technology that.
Another episode of Life Loosened Up. I've been book ignorant till 2019, but this year I promised myself that I need to read 30 books. And I'm on my 15th book so far. That's a lesson learned on making small goals instead of making a bigger one. That's my first tip of the day. I contemplated on a thought whether to buy digital version or the physical copies, but then I finally landed up on buying Kindle version because of several things. Number one, it's easy, buy and read immediately. Number two, highlight and you don't have to write it down, the good thoughts that you come across. Number three, reduce environmental impact. There's a lot to be said these days about not consuming the paper to create a book and not using fossil fuels to deliver and pick up a book. Number four, reduces the clutter at home and you don't need to have space at home. But there are few things which were unfolded with my friend Ahmad, who is co-worker, gem of a person, smart and very thoughtful person, and this big wealth of knowledge. We both have some dreams, and phenomenal thing is we keep following up with each other like guardian angels, so that we don't get distracted in our goals. It gets interesting here, so pay attention to this. Ahmad believes in buying physical copies. He says there is a psychology behind it. Although he buys ebooks first and then he goes for the physical book if he falls for it. So, topic for the today is psychology of buying physical books. Welcome to my show, Ahmad. How is it going?
Thank you, Kathy. It's good. It's good. Thank you
All
for
right,
inviting me.
no problem. You're welcome. Can you just do like this?
All right.
Oh yeah, this
Am
is
I
something
stretching?
yeah, this is kind of stretching. It kind of relieves you a bit, kind of loosens you a bit, so that you can talk freely on my show.
All right. Cool.
You feeling relaxed now?
Yeah. Yeah. Feels good.
Awesome. So yeah, so Ahmad, my first question is: can you explain the psychology behind why you prefer physical books over digital?
um. So I guess for me personally, I like to keep my stuff with me, and preserve them. That's, I guess, the biggest reason why I would prefer physical books. It's one of the things that a lot of people don't think about, which is that we rely on technology a lot nowadays. And you really, I don't know if we should rely on technology that much because it could be gone anytime. Like you did mention Kindle, and I use Kindle, which I'll explain in a bit. Um, but Kindle is an Amazon service, and who can tell you if Amazon is going to be there 20, 30 years later, right?
Mhm.
So if Amazon is gone and your books are gone, then it depends how much you value books, right? Like if somebody's a casual book reader, then maybe it's fine and they don't care too much. Uh, but I do care, and I think the biggest reason is having them with me and making sure that I'll always have them. Um, and also for my kids, one day, they can, pass by the bookshelves. Hopefully not here, and like I did when I was a kid. But I guess also you you keep the things that you value most around you. Like I think it's nice that if you have a book that you like so much and you think
Mhm.
it's valuable,
Mhm.
especially if you think it's valuable, then it's good to keep it around you because it's also a reminder for you, uh, for what you learned from it, and you should never where you'll never forget it. Like you'll always keep it in mind, right? Like one of the
Mhm.
books that I read is HyperFocus, and it's nice to have it around. I've read it. It's around me all the time. And sometimes when I get into the habit of being distracted
Mhm.
from what I try to do, it's a good reminder. Like, yeah, maybe I should focus, And
Wow.
yeah, and then automatically you kind of do the same things that you learned from the book.
Mm-hmm.
to focus, right?
Yep. But have you inherited this from your dad or something, like
I don't know.
preserving these books?
That's a good question. I don't know if I inherited it, but it's definitely culture in my home. So
Okay.
my dad is a mathematician, and
Yep.
in our house back home, we have a lot of bookshelves and a lot of books, and most of the books are definitely math books, obviously. Uh, but we also have philosophy. We have physics books. We even have fiction books in our bookshelves, and that's how I got into reading when I was a kid, right? Because they were always around.
Mhm.
My dad also loves physical books, which there's a lot of more reasons why one could like physical books. But but yeah, I don't know if it's inherited, I guess, but definitely part of the culture that I've been raised in, I would say.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my next question to you is, do you share books with people, ask them to read? I can tell you an example of this. I have an uncle. What he does is, whenever he talks with some people and he gets on the same wavelength as them, he just shares the book with them, just asks them to read that book, and he does not let them to buy that book online or offline, but he gives that book or he lends that book for some time, so that he can have a conversation with them. What are your thoughts on that?
That's pretty nice to do. For me, I'm trying to think of how many times I did something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely lended books before. Um, but now I can think of a few examples, like a friend, even my father, and people like that. I did it a few times where I didn't give them the book, but
Mm-hmm.
I definitely gifted them that book. So I bought that book again
Mm-hmm.
and gave them that copy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I guess it depends on where the question lies. I usually don't give my books away.
Oh.
So like if I have a book, all of the books that you see here, and it's not a lot of books, um, uh, I usually buy a copy. And the nice things about physical books is you can buy a used copy, which all of my books are used unless there wasn't a used book. They're very cheap, and you can just buy them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then I could give that to someone as a gift. But I don't push books into people usually. If they ask me a question
Mm-hmm.
and I can relate that to something that I've read,
Mm-hmm.
like if someone is having problems with habits in their life, I could say, hey, there's a book called The Power of Habit. It's a good book, you should read it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if there is a chance, I would gift it to them,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. But I don't
Awesome.
usually bring up the topic of that book unless something in context comes up.
Yep, yep. And that goes to I'll have to definitely give you credit because you recommended me two books.
Mhm.
One is Power of Habit, and second is HyperFocus. And I have
Yep.
completed both of these books. Thank you so much for
Nice,
that.
nice. Anytime. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, moving to the next question, Ahmad. What's your deciding factor in book selection? What do you look for before selecting any books?
Selecting books is a pretty interesting thing, because most of the time for me it's not a conscious decision. Usually I don't go out looking for books. Usually it's a recommendation, or if you read between the lines. If most of the books that you read, especially nonfiction, I mean, put fiction aside because I like to read fiction too, but nonfiction books specifically, when you're reading them, you will notice that they also refer you to other books, to like dive deeper into a specific topic. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one source of recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
I will get back to how I choose because I definitely don't buy everything recommended.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a source of recommendation. Also, you have your friends. Sometimes I recommend,
Mm-hmm.
and the third source, sometimes you're reading online, which
Mm-hmm.
most of us do a lot. You're searching for something online, and somebody recommends it. So, in a nutshell, mostly it's recommendations. When it comes to picking the book, this kind of ties back to your first question, which is a nice. I like how it rotated back.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the I don't buy every book I want to read. right? So this makes it a little bit easier to go by recommendations. Because if I
Mm,
buy everything I get recommended, then I wouldn't have enough space to put all the books, and that's definitely a concern when it comes to books. They're very heavy and they take a
mm-hmm.
lot of space.
Right.
So usually I take it easy with picking the book. So I might read a few reviews online. I am
Mm-hmm.
part of Goodreads, which is a website that keeps track of what you read and what you don't
Mm-hmm.
read and all that, and what you want to read.
Mm-hmm.
You could read reviews and see what people say about it. Some people have video reviews as well. They talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
and and sometimes I don't even read any reviews. I just get the book electronically, and that's basically my first step. It's an easy entry. You get it electronically. I also have a Kindle.
Mm-hmm.
It's also good for highlighting, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But the key is it's an easy entry. So you
Mm-hmm.
get the book, you read it,
Mm-hmm.
and then if it's a good book and if I like it and I think it's a book that deserves to be in my bookshelves,
Mm-hmm.
that's the part where I buy the physical book, basically. So I
Awesome.
hope that answers the question
Oh
in
yeah,
a
that
round.
kind of answers my question.
Nice.
And my last question is, Ahmad, so do you have a way on how you retain the information after reading a book?
Okay, that's a good question. That's a two-part question for me. So some of the books that I read, they revolve around a key point,
Mm,
right? So some of the books, like a lot of people complain, especially people that don't read a lot,
mm,
uh, they say like the book is just saying the same thing over and over and over again, right? And this is definitely true when it comes to books that rotate around a single big idea, right? I think The Power of Habit is one of them. It's one idea, and you have all of these examples and
yep.
ways to push you to think of it this way.
Mm,
Those kinds of books, it's not very difficult to retain
mm,
because this is exactly why they are repetitive in the first place. It just
mm,
it makes you never forget the idea. Basically,
mm,
it just
mm.
keeps saying it in so many different ways with examples that
Right.
it's just ingrained in your mind.
Mm,
So for those books, usually I don't put any notes. I might have highlighting in it.
mm,
That's not for retention. It's more like if I want to go back and quickly go over it, I can just see
mm,
the nice things that I liked. But there are other books that have a lot of points in them,
mm,
and especially if it's something beneficial for me
mm.
that I want to retain, I usually keep Google Doc online,
I see.
right? And basically I give each chapter one page, and it's usually like half a page or less,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And I note it down. I note the summary of the chapter
mhm.
in a way that I feel comfortable with, summarized in there, so that if I go back to my Google Drive, I can see all of the files, all of the books that I have notes on, and then I
Wow.
can easily look at it and
Like you read
remember.
one page and you create notes on that Google Doc.
Not one. Actually, I read the whole book first.
Oh, the whole book first. Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the first step. That I need to not be distracted when I'm reading.
Mm-hmm.
If you summarize each chapter as you finish it,
Mm-hmm.
for me it's gonna be difficult. Maybe some people can do it, and it's fine by them. But for me, I get distracted and I lose focus because I want to read
I
the
see.
book and understand it.
Mm-hmm.
After I finish the book, usually what I do is I quickly, not quickly, it takes a couple of hours at least. But I go back, not on the same day, like maybe give it a week or two, and then I come back and go through the chapters one by one. Usually I have highlighting, and highlighting is very important if you read books. I used to hate it because it modifies the book. I don't do that anymore. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I go through the highlights and I put the summaries of each chapter one by one. Uh,
Nice.
and that's it. After that, I close the book, put it back in the bookshelf, or just close it on Kindle if I don't have it in book form yet. And
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, man, those were the only questions I had. So this is how I end the interview. I ask few rapid fire questions. And
all right.
rapid fire questions as in I give you two options. You have to just select one.
One, I
Most
can't
of this you
say
no, you cannot say both. Just one.
okay or none. I can't select none or both. I have to select one.
E-
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
just one. So I
All
think
right.
most of them you've already said it now. But number one, fiction or non-fiction?
Non-fiction.
Physical notes or mental notes?
Physical.
Morning reading or evening reading?
Evening.
Watching TV or reading?
Reading for sure.
Many book at a time or one book at a time?
One book at a time.
Nice. Yeah, those were the only thing I had. Thank you so much for coming to my show, and I'm hugely honored to invite you to this show. Thank you so much, Ahmad.
Uh, the honor is all mine. Thank you so much for inviting me over. It's been a pleasure.
Sure. Khuda Hafiz.
Yeah, Khuda Hafiz.